The sinking of the Titanic is one of the most infamous seatime disasters in history. And very recently, we've had another one, with the tragic implosion of the Titan submersive, which was on an expedition to view the wreck of the Titanic underwater. Both of these tragedies have eerie similarities and parallels. In this video, we're going to quickly recap the Titanic disaster, and you're going to want to stay to the end because here we're going to highlight the strange parallels between the Titanic and OceanGate's Titan. The RMS Titanic, built by White Star Line, was a luxury ocean liner and one of the largest ships of its time. It was heralded as unsinkable due to its advanced design and enhanced safety features. These included the fact that it was built using state-of-the-art shipbuilding techniques. It featured a double-bottomed hull, which consisted of 2 layers of steel plates separated by a space filled with water or oil. This design was intended to enhance buoyancy and increase the ship's resistance to flooding. It also had 16 watertight compartments which could be closed by a remotely controlled panel if the ship encountered a leak or a damage. Even if a few of these compartments were breached, it was believed that the ship was capable of staying afloat due to its ability to withstand flooding in a number of these compartments. The Titanic also had a reputation as it was constructed by the renowned Harland and Wolff shipyard in Ireland. The company was famous for building strong and reliable ships. The White Star Line then capitalized on this and promoted its reputation as unsinkable. The combination of these factors and a false sense of security ultimately contributed to the tragedy. The ship had capacity to carry over 3,000 people, including passengers and crew. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, and had stops in France, Ireland, and was on its way to New York. On board were many wealthy passengers, including businessmen, politicians, and celebrities, as well as immigrants seeking a new life in America. Now here's where things start to get a bit troublesome. Throughout the journey, the ship received several warnings from other vessels, indicating the presence of ice fields along its route. However, despite these warnings, the ship maintained its speed. At roughly 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, while sailing through the North Atlantic, the Titanic struck an iceberg on its starboard side. The iceberg's impact caused significant damage to the ship's hull below the waterline, puncturing several of its compartments. After the collision, distress signals were sent out using rockets and wireless telegraphy. A nearby ship, the SS Californian, saw these distress signals but failed to respond quickly. It mistook these signals for celebrations and misinterpreted the situation. As the severity of the situation became clear, the crew continued to launch distress flares and started lowering lifeboats. But due to lack of sufficient lifeboats and inadequate training on emergency procedures, the evacuation process was chaotic and disorganized. Women and children were prioritized and many men were left behind. The Titanic gradually started to sink by the bow due to the flooding of its front compartments. As water poured into the ship through the damaged areas, the weight imbalance caused the ship's stern to rise out of the water, making the evacuation process even more tricky. Shortly before 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, the Titanic broke into two and sank into the icy depths of the North Atlantic, where it remains to this day. The RMS Carpathia, after receiving distress signals from the Titanic, altered its course and arrived to the scene at approximately 4 a.m. However, by that point, lifeboats were scattered across the area and survivors were struggling to stay alive in the icy cold waters. The Carpathia rescued 705 passengers and transported them to New York City. However, over 1,500 lives were lost due to the tragedy. The sinking of the Titanic led to widespread grief and shock, as well as significant changes to sea regulations and safety practices. It highlighted the need for more lifeboats on ships and better communication systems. Till this day, it remains a poignant reminder of the dangers of overconfidence and the importance of prioritizing safety measures in sea travel. Now, this brings us to the parallels between the Titanic disaster and the tragedy of the Titan, the submersible that was operated by OceanGate that imploded recently with 5 passengers on board. Now, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of this disaster, as I'm sure that's all you've heard recently, but it's important to note that investigations are still ongoing and it will be very interesting to see what is revealed in the upcoming months. But the main parallels that I would like to highlight here between the Titanic and the Titan is the sense of overconfidence. Over the years, OceanGate did receive quite a few safety warnings, but seemed to either deprioritize them or just ignore them completely. Here are a few examples. The first being the fact that the Titan was not subject to safety regulations. Since it operated in international waters and did not carry passengers from a port, It was not subject to safety regulations and was not certified as seaworthy by any regulatory agency or any third-party organization. In 2018, OceanGate's director of marine operations raised serious safety concerns he had about the Titan. He urged the company to have the Titan assessed by an independent agency, but OceanGate declined to do so as it was not willing to pay for this. In 2018, the Marine Technology Society also wrote a letter to OceanGate CEO, a man named Stockton Rush. They expressed, and I quote, unanimous concern regarding the development of Titan, indicating that the current experimental approach could result in negative outcomes from minor to catastrophic. In 2018, Rob McCallum, a leading deep sea exploration specialist, also emailed Rush to warn him that he was potentially risking his client's safety and advised against the Titan's use until it had been independently tested. Apparently, Rush replied that he was, and I quote, tired of industry players who try to use safety arguments to stop innovations. He also said, we have heard baseless cries of, you are going to kill someone, way too often. McCallum then sent Rush another email saying, I think you are potentially placing yourself and your clients in a dangerous dynamic. In a race to the Titanic, you are mirroring that famous catch cry, she is unsinkable. OceanGate's lawyers then threatened McCallum with legal action. Further quotes from Stockton Rush also seem quite shocking when read in light of the recent tragedy. In a 2019 article published in Smithsonian Magazine, Rush is described as having said that the US Passenger Vessel Safety Act of 1933 needlessly prioritized passenger safety over commercial innovation. In a 2021 YouTube interview, which I'll link in the description below, Rush also says, I've broken some rules to make the Titan. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule that you don't do that. Well, I did. And more recently, in a 2022 interview with CBS News, Rush said, at some point, safety is just pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed. Don't get in your car. Don't do anything. And that brings us to the end. This video is not intended to put anybody in a particular light as there's still an ongoing investigation, but I just found it really strange and interesting when learning of these two disasters in parallel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.